My name is Natalie Hartley. I'm 34 years old, and by the time I was 31, I was managing a private wealth portfolio worth $118 million for 42 families across 3 states. Disowned, that's the word my mother used in the county courthouse parking lot on June 9th, 2019. Disowned. While my business card said senior portfolio strategist, and my quarterly bonus that year was $214,000. I need to tell you what happened in a conference room on the fourth floor of Whitfield Financial Group on April 3rd of this year. Because a man in a gray suit read 4 sentences out loud, and my sister's face did something I will remember until the day I die. But before I show you that, let me set the scene properly, because you need to understand how we got there. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment and tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I read every single one. And I promise you, by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why I needed to tell this story. Let me take you back to Millhaven, Ohio, a town of about 6,200 people where the biggest building downtown is a Presbyterian church built in 1911. I grew up in a 3-bedroom house on Larchmont Avenue with my mother, Diane, and my older sister, Vanessa, who is 3 years older than me. My father left when I was 6. From the time I could understand anything, I understood this. Vanessa was the pretty one, the easy one, the one who never had to try. I was the one who got asked, at 14, why I couldn't just be more like my sister. Vanessa got a used Honda Civic for her 17th birthday. I got a lecture about how cars spoil a teenager's character. Small things, but they stack up over 19 years like sediment. I put myself through Ohio State working 2 jobs, a campus library desk, and a Friday through Saturday shift at a diner called Kessler's on High Street, and graduated in 2014 with a finance degree and $31,000 in student debt. Vanessa never finished her associate's degree. By 2017, at 29, she was managing a boutique clothing store in Millhaven called Adorn, which her then-boyfriend had helped her open with a $40,000 loan co-signed by our mother. The trigger happened on October 22nd, 2018, a Tuesday. Adorn was $18,000 behind on its lease, and Vanessa needed a second loan. This one for $35,000, and she needed a co-signer with strong credit and stable income. Mine. I was 26, 11 months into a promotion, and I had just been approved for my own mortgage 6 weeks earlier. My mother called me at 7:40 p.m. and said, Vanessa needs this, and you're the only one who can help her. I said no, not out of spite. I'd seen Adorn's books when Vanessa showed them to me in a moment of panic, and the store was $61,000 in the red with no realistic path forward. I told my mother the truth. I would help Vanessa find a business consultant. I would help her draft a win-down plan. But I would not put my name on a loan that would fail. That was my one firm no. 4 days later, on October 26th, my mother invited me to Sunday dinner. The house smelled like the pot roast she always made, and there were exactly 5 place settings on the table when I arrived, though only 4 of us ended up sitting down. My mother's hands were shaking slightly as she set down a casserole dish. Vanessa wouldn't look at me. My mother said, "We've talked, and we think it's best if you take some time away from this family. You clearly don't care what happens to us." I remember the specific chill of the ceramic plate under my fingers, untouched. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I said, "Okay," folded my napkin and left. I drove 11 minutes home with the radio off, and I sat in my driveway for what my phone later told me was 46 minutes before I went inside. I felt hollowed out, not broken. There's a difference, and I want you to understand that difference, because for years afterward, that stillness is what let me keep functioning. The person who caught me during that fall was my direct supervisor at the firm, a 59-year-old man named Robert Ashe, who had been in wealth management for 31 years. Robert wasn't family, but on the Thanksgiving after I was cut off, he and his wife set a 6-chair at their table without being asked. He mentored me hard over the next 4 years. Not gently, but honestly, which is what I needed. He was the one who told me in March of 2020, "Keep records of everything, Natalie. Not because you're planning revenge, because clarity protects you." So I started a binder. Emails, screenshots, voicemail transcriptions, dates. I called it, half-jokingly, my paper armor. Year 1, I made partner track associate. Year 2. In 2020, I passed my CFP exam and picked up 9 new client households during the market volatility when people wanted someone calm on the phone. Year 3. My book of managed assets crossed $60 million. Year 4. I was promoted to senior portfolio strategist, managing $118 million, and I bought a townhouse in Cedar Ridge, 40 minutes from Millhaven, that I renovated myself over 11 months. In 4 years, I received exactly one piece of contact from my family, a Christmas card in December 2020, and signed except for Mom with no return address. The silence broke on January 14th of this year. My mother, now 63, texted me, "Can we talk? It's important." I met her at a coffee shop called Pruitt's on Route 9. She looked older, tired around the eyes, and she told me her hip replacement recovery had been hard and that she'd started letting Vanessa help manage her checking account just to keep things simple. She didn't apologize for the dinner in 2018. She talked instead about a $340,000 portfolio she'd inherited from my grandmother in 2021, money she'd never mentioned to me before. 3 weeks later, on February 5th, I found out why she'd really reached out. My cousin Melissa, who'd stayed in a family group chat I'd been quietly removed from years earlier, sent me a screenshot. Her phone still logged into an old shared iCloud account nobody had bothered to update. In it, Vanessa had written to our aunt, "If I get Mom to sign the POA papers before her next hip surgery, none of this goes through Natalie. She doesn't even need to know." The timestamp was January 9th, 5 days before my mother texted me. That was the moment I understood the reconciliation had nothing to do with love. It had a dollar figure attached to it, and the dollar figure was $340,000, plus a house worth roughly $210,000 outright. I did the responsible thing. On February 19th, I called my mother's financial advisor directly, a man named Gerald Whitfield, 62 years old, who'd managed a modest account for my mother since 2016. I asked him carefully whether my mother had any existing documentation about her wishes. He couldn't tell me details over the phone, client confidentiality, but he said something I've never forgotten. "Natalie, your mother has been more specific about this than you'd think." That single sentence kept me steady for the next 6 weeks. The family financial planning meeting was scheduled for April 3rd at 2 p.m. at Whitfield Financial Group, ostensibly to get everyone on the same page about Mom's estate. Vanessa had arranged it. She arrived in a cream blazer, sat down across the mahogany table from me, and opened with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I think we all know I'm better equipped to handle Mom's day-to-day finances," she said. "Natalie's always been a little unstable with money. Remember the loan thing." She said it lightly, like a joke, like 4 years of silence hadn't happened. I didn't answer her. I just looked at Gerald. Gerald Whitfield opened a manila folder, adjusted his glasses, and said, "Before we discuss any changes, I want to read something into the record. Diane asked me to keep this on file in 2021, in case there was ever a disagreement." He read 4 sentences my mother had handwritten and signed on March 30th, 2021, that she wanted her accounts managed according to Natalie's professional judgment in the event of her incapacity, that she trusted Natalie's discipline more than anyone else in this family, including myself, that Vanessa was not, under any circumstances, to be granted financial power of attorney without Natalie's written consent, and that she was sorry it took me this long to say it out loud. The room went completely silent. Vanessa's mouth opened and nothing came out. Her hand, I noticed, was gripping the edge of the table. I said one thing calmly. "I never needed you to believe in me. I just needed you to stop rewriting what actually happened." That was the whole of my revenge, and it was enough. Vanessa's composure cracked for just a moment, her eyes filled, and she said, quietly, almost to herself, "I just didn't want to be the one everyone was disappointed in again," which was the first honest sentence I'd heard her say in 6 years. Then, almost immediately, she straightened up and said the paperwork was probably outdated anyway. It wasn't. Gerald confirmed the letter had been notarized and updated as recently as September of last year. Nothing happened to Vanessa because of me. Adorn had already closed in 2022, $94,000 in debt. Her marriage ended that same year. The consequences she's living with were built by her own choices years before that meeting, brick by brick, the same way my career was. My mother, for her part, has called me every Sunday since April 3rd, and I've let her back in, slowly, carefully. She was honest with me in a way she'd never managed before, and that door stays open. Vanessa and I are not close. I don't know if we ever will be, but I stopped needing that. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this. You don't have to raise your voice to be believed. Sometimes the truth just needs a quiet room, a folder, and someone willing to read it out loud. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe, drop a comment about your own family, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. I'll see you in the next one.